All right, the next story was the only other one that may have been sent to me more than any other, and that is this the latest Subway bread news, which I couldn't imagine that this would have ever ended up in one of these shows, but there's been an Irish Supreme Court ruling that all varieties of Subway's sub rolls, even the whole grain, cannot be considered bread because they have too much sugar in them. Now, the reason this whole thing comes up is because bread is like an essential food item. So it's taxed differently than something that would be sugary, like a dessert that you don't really need to have, and it has a different level of tax applied to it. So they're sitting in there running their analysis and evaluation of how this bread would be classified. Is it a meal or is it a treat?
Yeah.
So they look at the bread, and the restriction they had was that 2% of the makeup of the bread / pastry could be sugar to still be considered bread. The Subway bread is more like 10%.
Oh.
And now you know why there's a Subway on every corner.
Yeah.
You got 10% sugar in the bread? Let me make sure I got this right, okay? Hold up. In 1972, Ireland passed the Value Added Tax Act, which taxes restaurants and restaurant groups on the food they sell based on various categories. The Galway, Ireland-based franchisee filed a lawsuit against authorities saying it shouldn't have to pay the tax on hot sandwiches eaten in the restaurant because the bread makes them a staple food, which don't get taxed. Well, however, that's where the analysis comes in. By the VAT Act's definition of bread, the sugar, fat, and bread improver, I don't even know what bread improver is, cannot add up to more than 2% of the weight of the flour in the dough. This makes it so restaurants can't pass off sugary baked goods like pastries and cakes as staple foods, which would be exempted from the tax. The sugar content of Subway's bread is 10% of the weight of flour, and therefore, according to the justices, it cannot be considered bread. Your Subway sandwich is a cake. Jack's shaking his head over there. You knew that it was sweet? Oh, right. Yes.
It's substantial.
That's another good point. It's another good point you're making. It's like,
thick.
what percentage of your sandwich is bread?
Yeah.
Compared to how you would make it if you just had a slice of regular bread. It's a lot of bread, too.
Yeah.
So the overall percentage of your sandwich is already high. And then if 10% of the bread content of the sandwich is sugar, now your overall meal has quite a bit of sugar in it.
Did they say specifically which bread kind?
All
Did
of
they
them.
go in depth?
No, they just said
which one's worse?
Oh, I don't know which one's worse. Probably the better it tastes. Obviously, the white one, the Italian or whatever. But
boy. I love Italian.
But I wonder if part of it is a preservative component, because sugar can kind of preserve things. And I wonder if the way that the product is shipped, because they're always saying it's fresh baked every day, but you're wondering, what, you're baking all this bread? It's the way it comes in is already. It's not like you have dough there.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, but it's already rationed out into the loaves. Are they using it as some kind of preservative, or do they just want it to be more addictive because people are like, that sandwich was great, and meanwhile it was just sweetened right up. So anyways, they did respond. Subway responded and said, of course our bread is bread, as you would if you were them. But it's funny, they got this story that's now viral. They may have to respond, or at least consider an option in store that's going to have a lower sugar content for customers who are interested. I presume that's something they could do and maybe should do. The low sugar bread. I didn't even think of sugar when I think of bread, but apparently Jack's been thinking about it for years.
Or I guess flatbread too. They have that.
But I bet you the flatbread will be the same, right?
Is it?
I don't know. I would just guess.
I never get it. That's the thing.
I would just guess it would be the same.